green zealots who think our farmers should stop rearing livestock and instead we should eat fake meat. Conference, regardless of what the zealots say, and by the way, I'm being taken to court in relation to this right now, I'm absolutely not going to tell anyone that they should not eat meat. Fake meat might be okay for astronauts, but when people think of a meat feast, I want them to be thinking about our great Welsh lamb, our Aberdeen Angus beef, our saddleback pork, not some pizza topping. But there is one other group of farmers whose efforts I want to recognise, and that's from Ukraine, who, despite the illegal invasion by Russia, are still managing to bring the harvest in. We've continued to support them this year through President Zelensky's Grain for Ukraine initiative, and have also sent pumps and flood barriers to protect their homes and fields. The United Kingdom will remain Ukraine's steadfast ally for as long as it takes. Conference, the countryside is at the heart of what makes our country such a great, special place to live. But as well as the joys of rural life, we know there are challenges, particularly when it comes to digital connectivity. You know, I share in the frustrations of a crackling call or a faltering video Teams meeting. But earlier this year, Simon Fell, MP for Barrow-in-Furness, was appointed to be our rural connectivity champion, and I know he has got to work straight away. And today, I'm delighted to announce that the Technology Secretary is reviewing the Universal Service Obligation, which I expect will help rural households and businesses, and looking to get faster broadband to some of the most remote places in the country. Now, connectivity isn't just digital. In the countryside, it is mainly cars, buses, and of course, tractors. And I was delighted when we extended the £2 bus fare. But going further today, the Transport Secretary is publishing a new rural transport strategy, setting out how we are going to support rural communities, revitalise rural roads, and also planning for the future of transport technology too. It's another example of how we understand the needs of rural areas. And when we say that we are on the side of motorists, we mean it. But of course, everywhere Labour is in power, we see they're not. Whether it's London and ULEZ, the 20 miles per hour blanket thrown across Wales while the Labour government has cancelled major roads. And here, even here in Manchester, where Andy Burnham, frankly, he's the only Labour politician to beat Keir Starmer for flip-flops. He wanted a region-wide ULEZ as well. Conference, we also need more homes in the countryside so that rural communities can continue to flourish. And that's why we've consulted to make it easier to turn disused farm buildings into homes. And we are funding a new team of rural housing enablers right across England to support new small schemes and boost the supply of new affordable housing to rent. Today, as a next step with the Levelling Up Secretary, I can announce that Homes England is publishing a rural housing statement setting out how it will play its part in delivering the government's housing and levelling up priorities in rural areas. So when it comes to the Countryside Conference, yes, we have lots more to do, but we have made so much progress and will continue to do so to have a thriving, vibrant countryside. Now, as the Secretary of State for Rural Affairs, I am the countryside champion across government, but it's clear from what work we are doing and new strategies that we are developing that the countryside matters in all corners of this government. And Conference, we're going further to help farmers and rural businesses by making the most of our Brexit freedoms. Freedom from European rules, freedom to choose what works best for Britain. And we've already legislated to allow gene editing so that we can design crops that are fit for the future. And my officials are cutting red tape and introducing smarter regulation. Frankly, bent or straight, it's not for government to decide the shape of bananas you want to eat. I just need to assure you that they are safe to eat. So we will be dropping absurd regulations, including the one on bendy bananas. But contrast all of this to Labour. They are sneakily signing up to keeping in step with whatever Europe decides. And while we're on the topic of Labour not being honest with people, Conference, frankly, when they were in government, there was minimal monitoring of sewage overflows, in fact, hardly any at all. And they looked the other way. They were even taken to court by Europe. And now what they propose in their incredible plan would see your household bills rise by £1,000 per year. And as for the Liberals, well, their plan is nothing but a gimmick. Switching off storm overflows? Great, that would leave sewage to back up into your homes. And with our plan for water, we have a credible plan and we're fixing Labour's mess yet again and taking long-term decisions for the security of supply, for homes, for businesses, and our farmers too. So conference, be proud of what we Conservatives have achieved. Be proud of what we have delivered for the countryside, even in just the last year. Much progress made, still much more to be done, now for the long term, and we're going to get down to business and we're going to deliver it. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Secretary of State for Education, Gillian Keegan.
It's a real honour to address you here today. 40 years ago, less than 40 miles away from here, sat in a failing comprehensive school in Knowsley, I could never have imagined myself standing here today. Growing up in Huyton, the constituency of Harold Wilson, the influence of the Labour Party was everywhere around me, including in my own family. My great-grandma, a proud, lifelong member of the Labour Party. My granddad, a miner and a member of the NUM. In my office, on my desk, sits my granddad's miner's lamp, a daily reminder of where I'm from and why I became an MP. So being a working-class girl from Liverpool, I often get asked, why on earth are you a Conservative? Well, here's why. The Conservative Party is the party that helped my grandparents buy their council houses. It's the party that stood up to the destructive force of the unions in the 70s and the 80s. This party aspired for me and my family to have a better future and was willing to take the hard decisions to get us there. That's because we are a party that believes in giving people a hand up, not a handout. And as the Prime Minister says, education is our silver bullet. Now, it's often said that talent is everywhere, but opportunity isn't. And I know that's true because I have lived it. 92% of my classmates left my Knowsley Comprehensive School with less than the 5 O-levels, many without a single qualification. Those kids that I sat next to every day for 5 years were as bright as anyone I've met ever since. It's not that they couldn't do it, they were let down. Education is a way that we make sure that that doesn't happen. And every day, my brilliant ministerial team, Nick Gibb, Robert Halfon, David Johnston, and Diana Barron, who are fantastic, are focused on making the choices that will lead to a brighter future for our children. Now, there are so many places where this Conservative government is making the difference. So let's start with childcare. In my business life, I have seen woman after woman have to choose between their career and having a family, and usually their career lost. These were women who were top of their class, got the highest grades, the very best starting jobs, and then had to watch the opportunities that used to be there disappear, watch their careers end prematurely. And the impact on our economy, it's massive. And Labour have admired this problem for years. 13 years of Labour delivered only 12.5 hours of free childcare for 3- and 4-year-olds, less than 1 hour per year of office. This government has already massively expanded the offer, but we will go further by introducing 30 hours free childcare for working parents from the end of maternity leave until their child goes to school. It's giving mums and dads back their choice. And to be clear, this is the most comprehensive and generous childcare package in our country's history. It is the Conservative Party that are taking long-term decisions to support families. Now, we've completely transformed our school standards, making sure that all kids go to a good school. We're determined to crush the soft bigotry that says people like me shouldn't succeed. And a single teacher can change your life. For me, that teacher was Mr. Ashcroft, who stayed behind after school to teach me engineering when girls couldn't study it. Every day, every teacher, every one of them is changing a life. And to them, I say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I'm particularly grateful to those who have worked night and day with us to ensure that children are able to learn face-to-face despite the challenges of RAC. Even though the pandemic set us back, our education standards are recovering and they are rising. Our plan is working. We've reformed the school system. We've reformed teacher training. We've reformed the curriculum. Our phonics checks are ensuring children leave school able to read properly. Our free schools are driving up choice and standards. Our academies are unleashing heads to run education in a way that works for children, not for bureaucrats. And the results speak for themselves. Our children are now the best in the West for reading. It's a phenomenal achievement, and I'm determined that it will be maths that's next. I'm so proud of our children for what they have achieved, and our reforms are working, despite the opposition. Labour and the Lib Dems called our plans dangerous and ideological. They said our literacy drive was dull. Time and time again, they choose short-term policies over long-term decision-making. And the results? Whilst we're rising in the international league tables, Labour-run Wales and SNP-run Scotland are slipping behind. They play the same old politics. We make the decisions that improve things for our children. Today, one of the biggest issues facing children and teachers is grappling with the impact of smartphones in our schools. The distraction, the disruption, the bullying. We know that teachers are struggling with their impact, and we know that they need support. So today, we're recognising the amazing work that many schools have done in banning mobile phones, and we're announcing that we will change guidance so that all schools will follow their lead. Because the focus should be on children learning in the classroom. Children need to be in school. Now, that shouldn't be controversial, but during the strikes, Labour could never bring themselves to say so. In fact, many of their MPs joined the picket lines. Perhaps that's because the unions fund their campaigns, fund their party. But it's outrageous, and I've seen firsthand what happens when Labour puts politics ahead of people. Growing up in Liverpool under Derek Hatton, it has certainly left a scar. When Kinnock said that you can't play politics with people's lives, he was talking about my family's jobs, my friends' houses, and everybody's services around me. Not that Hatton cared. I actually met him once. It was at the opening of a wine bar when I was a teenager, and there he was, Derek Hatton, larger than life, his Jag and the driver outside, handing out glasses of champagne as we walked in. Yep, you heard it right, conference. I was given my first glass of champagne by a socialist. I was talking recently to a Labour MP about Delco, the car factory I started working age 16. And she told me with pride that she'd visited it as part of a flying picket. I looked at her and told her, you and your mates cost everybody their jobs. Because that's the problem. They thought you could strike your way to a better job. And I thought it's common sense that we'd have better jobs if the factory remained open. And when the factory closed, they were off to their next demo whilst ordinary people were left to pick up the pieces. Now, common sense is what guides me. It is common sense to say that parents should be able to see what their children are being taught in schools. It's common sense that girls should have separate toilets from boys. And it's common sense that earning and learning is a brilliant route into a career. It makes no sense to set an arbitrary target of 50% of kids going to university when we need 100% of kids getting great opportunities. And university is not the only option. My apprenticeship changed my life, and thanks to this government, have changed 5.5 million lives since 2010. Some people view them as second rate, but my mission is to change that, to make an apprenticeship the way you become a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, even a space engineer. Many will still want to go to university, and that will be the right choice for them. And if they do, they should get the education that they've paid for. That's common sense, right? Apparently not. Because over recent years, we've seen constant strikes, we've seen students not getting the education they've paid for, and some not even having their degrees marked. This is outrageous behaviour. So today, I am announcing that we will consult to introduce minimum service levels in universities so that they have the tools to make sure that students get the teaching that they deserve. So when I go home to Liverpool and they ask, why are you a Conservative? Well, here's the answer. With the Conservatives, you get the childcare that allows you to have a family and a career. With the Conservatives, you get schools which standards are relentlessly rising rather than going backwards under Labour. With the Conservatives, you get an apprenticeship that is a route to a great career, not a dead end with an enormous student debt. With the Conservatives, you get the opportunity to go as far as you can. And we are the only party that will make the long-term decisions to give our children the bright future that they deserve. Conference, thank you very much.